Find myself again.
You're missing in cyberspace.
I literally have 7 windows open under there. It was like, I see Michael, but where am I?
Well, no one ever said you're not a multitasker, Jenny.
We know you would think that I would. There's no other way to do it, because then you have to make everybody wait. Hang on, everybody, while I open this screen. So, how are you this morning, Mr. Michael?
Sorry, I missed last week. I've got some numbers for you. I know how much you like to play number games, so I figured we'd play a little guess these economic number games here.
Do we
gonna really make you upset?
Oh Lord. Okay, go ahead.
Well, the first one's 517 billion. 517 billion. What do you think?
That was the Oklahoma budget.
Was it?
But it was close. It was
pretty high.
12 or 15 billion. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead. Yes.
Well, that's what they want to spend on public education. No. 517 billion is the number that the FDIC just recently disclosed. That is unrealized losses in a lot of these regional banks. They've got $517 billion in unrealized losses. So you know what that means. There's going to be some major regional banking issues, coming here.
No.
Sooner or later.
Now, not like Bank of America banks, but you're talking about regional bank.
Yeah. So, that next tier down, not the mega banks like Citi and JP and Bank of America, this is the next layer down.
Oh, good night.
So
really?
That's about
more likely to affect the local consumer is what you're saying.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's really excellent news.
So, and the FDIC, they don't have those kind of reserves to bail out 517 billion, but that's what it is. The next number, Jenny, you'll really be happy with this number, being a former member of government. $5.2 million. This just recently happened. $5.2 million. What do you think that is?
Well, million is a drop in the bucket compared to the trillion that we talk about all the time. So,
well, that's what our esteemed colleagues, I guess I can't say colleagues, but our esteemed members of Congress, instead of just ponying up and saying, hey, this $180,000+ we make a year is just not enough money, we need a raise, they allocated to themselves $5.2 million to just pay for living expenses.
Goodness.
So just rent, food, whatever. They didn't even have to turn in receipts or anything. They literally just had to make out a list, and they just got reimbursed to the tune of $5.2 million.
When serving the public becomes a money-making job, then what happens? Is the public being served?
Yeah, they are. They just don't know it.
Oh. Being served, I guess I should say, is it a poop sandwich that we're getting here? I mean, what's going on? Because that is ridiculous. I mean, I get that DC is expensive. I mean, you and I have both been there. It's expensive. But mother of pearl, that is absolutely unconscionable when you have people who can't even afford groceries.
Yeah. I mean, I think we could all do with a little
infusion of cash.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. How do we get on the pork barrel money handout here in Congress?
Public handout system. I guess maybe we need to go in and have lunch at the school lunches with our kids.
But we can't get in there to have school lunch with our kids.
But maybe that will be a little bit of a grocery offset. But anyway, like as an example, here's just one example. Okay, so you got, let's say, big freedom fighter Matt Gaetz.
Okay.
He turned in $10,000 just for groceries alone. That's just one guy. $10,000 for groceries.
All righty then.
I mean, how'd you like there's people that don't even get to spend $10,000 a year on groceries. Anyway, it's another slap in our face. And, you think all these guys are on our side. And
Pep.
Just like slap in the face.
Don't ever use the word you when you're talking to me implying that I somehow believe that these people are on our side, because no, I recently put in our newsletter the article that I wrote for the Federalist years ago about the 1945 Reader's Digest that my mom found at a garage sale and that I looked through. So, when you had a Democratic congressman back then in 1945 complaining that pretty much every American was on the American government had expanded to the point where it was bigger than the people in 1945, and that excluded military expenses for the war.
Wow.
All right. I don't want to go too much longer gabbing. We've got a nice audience on this morning. They're not waiting for you and me, Michael.
No, they're not.
No, I think they're probably waiting for Sarah.
Good.
They don't turn her. Do what?
I said, bring her. Let's go.
Is Sarah ready? She's smiling. All right, Sarah, here you go. Good morning, Sarah.
Good morning.
How are you?
Doing well. I want to know what he got with the $10,000. Can you imagine? What must he have been eating? I really would love to.
Ooh, that's a really wide open question.
Yeah, there's no receipts for that. You just kind of make a list. Yeah, I think I need about 10,000 for groceries.
Wow.
Well, and there you go. But it's interesting because what we're going to talk about with you kind of ties into this just extraordinary notion of it's just everybody's money. What does it matter? We'll just print some if we need some. So you have been a homeschooler for how long?
Let's see. Well, my son just finished his junior year, and he's been homeschooled the whole time. So I don't know. It feels like 20 years, but it can't be that long yet. I guess like maybe 12 years.
Especially the early years feel like 20 years. It's like the first 5 years and you're like, oh, gosh, I just did 20 years of homeschooling.
Yeah. In one day.
Yeah.
Right. That's so funny. So you've been homeschooling a long time. Did you, because I think most people know, I didn't start out homeschooling. We moved to a neighborhood specifically to go to the blue ribbon school that I went to when I was a kid. And we put our kids in and went, what's going on here? This doesn't even look like education. Hey, can we get some new Saxon math books instead of what we have? No, we need a computer lab so our kids can keep up with other kids. Go sell some wrapping paper for us. I was like, this isn't my jam. My kids aren't going to get anything out of this. So I took my kids out. Did you start obviously you didn't even start in the public school. Were you always set on homeschooling your kids?
I was not. This is a good question. And of course, I don't think you and I have ever talked about this. I was homeschooled.
Your microphone went away a little bit. There you go.
Any better?
Yeah. Oh, yes. Because don't forget those gaming headphones. You have to have them almost swallowing. You have to be swallowing the mic.
My son's.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. Sorry.
So no, I was not. I didn't want to do public school if I could avoid it. I had not grown up in public school, and although I did spend some years in public school, so I was familiar with my own experience, which I didn't like as much as private, but I got married young, and there was just really no chance of affording private. And my husband had grown up always attending public school, so that was his frame of reference. And I don't think it had ever been challenged until, enter me.
Enter the wife going, but
yeah, right.
honey.
Right, which I think, lots of people have that same story.
Yes. Yeah.
But I had a friend who really encouraged me that you can teach your kid. And I thought, no, lots of people can, but I can't. I just really thought that I couldn't do it. Yeah, other people can, but no, there's no chance that I could do that. And she just kept encouraging me, and I gave it a shot. And what I was doing at that point when he was, 4 and 5, we didn't have the same like bombardment with thousands and thousands of curriculum choices. I mean, maybe there were, but I was not aware of them. So, I mean, I think I bought Hooked on Phonics for him when he was 4.
Nice. Good one.
And I was 1 year at a time, and people would ask me, "Oh, do you plan on doing this?" I'd say, "Oh, I don't know. I just let's just take it 1 year at a time."
Next year.
Yes. Because I couldn't see a path to how do I take this little kid all the way to graduation. I just couldn't see. I couldn't see how to do it. But gradually, you find your sea legs, so to speak. And honestly, I don't think it was until I had gotten hooked up with Classical Conversations that I could see a path to graduation. And maybe I would have figured it out at some point on my own, but I didn't have to. And I really liked the program, and we've stuck with it since then.
Well, I think most people who know me anyway know that I'm a huge proponent of Classical Conversations. We've had Robert Bortons on here before. We'll have him on again at another point in time. It's just I think what you said is absolutely spot on. It's like a pathway. Yeah. You may be completely, I don't know what the heck I'm doing, but boy, you get onto that footpath, and you just walk it every year, and you just know what's going to happen. So I mean, that's what I did too. So that's excellent.
And I don't know if you ever used the program or went to any of their informational meetings, but at the beginning, you're looking at these older kids and hearing them talk, and you're thinking, you can do that with my kid? And I thought, okay, let's give it a shot. Yeah. But then, it's like many years later, and we've gone full circle, and now, and he's been one of the kids on one of those panels saying something that sounds so wise. Yeah. And it's like, well, sure enough, the method works.
Well, I think that's a good jumping off point into your program for today, because homeschooling is not public schooling. It's not private schooling. It is its own separate category. And I know that you and I particularly, and Michael too, but you and I particularly, just because we've been in it so long, are just dead set on making sure that Oklahoma stays the freest possible state for home education in the 50. I mean, or 55 if you're Obama. Sure. I'm sorry. I always have to say that. Sorry.
I don't have anything in the slideshow that we're about to go through, but for anyone listening, if you go to the HSLDA website, you can see, or here, go back to my first, just go back to the blank screen there.
Oh, okay.
But, if you go to the HSLDA website, they have got like an
That's
interactive
Homeschooling Legal Defense Fund.
Yes, thank you. There's an interactive map there, and you can look at all of the regulations or restrictions or requirements for every state. And it's really helpful. There are plenty of states that are very friendly to homeschooling. And that's not what I'm talking about here. But if you look at Oklahoma, it is the freest in the whole nation. We don't have restrictions or regulations. I'm not just talking about friendliness. I'm talking about the freest, which I know you know that. But I wanted to make sure it was. Oh, there we go.
Well, you may, Jenni and Sarah, you may just expand that just a little bit to actually tell people in other states what is required of homeschoolers.
Well, all I have to do is do this: no notice, low regulation. So in these green states, the answer is basically bupkis. I mean, that's the great thing about Oklahoma. We don't owe these people anything right now. I mean, we can do what we want. We don't have to take state tests. We don't have to provide them a portfolio. We don't have to do anything like that. And that's why, I and I'm sure Sarah is the same way. We're just absolutely, I'm not going to let this go blue and certainly not red. I mean, we need to keep Oklahoma free so that people can do what they want.
Yeah. And the reason that matters is once you get into state testing or any kind of standardized testing, which I'm not against the test itself, but standardized testing is going to standardize the education itself.
Well, that's what standardized means.
Right. Right.
Homogeneous. It's all blue. It's not multicolored. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, okay, well, let's go ahead and let's dig in.
All right.
So we are going to, we're just going to look, I'll try to go through this quickly. I don't want anyone's eyes to glaze over, but I do want to, I just want to provide a basis for where we're going at the end of the conversation we'll have at the end. Okay, so at the beginning here, I've just got a couple of definitions. I realize I'm not debating either of you, but I would like to agree to the definition so that we know what we're talking about as we move on. So private school, I didn't make this up. I did actually look it up to be sure that I'm thinking of it correctly. And this is the definition that I found. Do we all agree that this is the definition of private school? It's a school that operates independently without government funding. Okay, you can go ahead and move on. What is homeschool? Now, I realize it could be defined lots of different ways, but it really needs to be a two-part definition. It has to be parent funded and parent directed. Now, okay, well, what if they get a gift from their church or from their grandparent? Let's not get into the weeds like that. Okay, we're talking about privately funded, and the parents are directing it. Okay, so there's lots of education that happens at home that doesn't fit with what we have right here. So EPIC, for instance, those parents are working very hard, but it wouldn't technically be homeschool.
And the main reason is because the government funds EPIC.
Yeah.
Well, and it's partly parent directed, but partly not. So it just doesn't fit with this definition. I'm not saying they're not working hard. I'm sure they are.
Yeah, no, nobody's putting them down, but it's just not homeschooling. Right. And I think it's important to mention that. And I'm glad that you did, Sarah, because so many people that I've talked to will say, I homeschool. And you're like, oh, great. What curriculum do you use? Oh, well, we do EPIC. And you don't want to be mean and go, that's not homeschooling, because that's mean. I mean, there's no reason to do that. But homeschooling is parent directed, parent funded. Yes. EPIC is not parent funded. And yes, you're right. It might be parent directed. You can pick out a little bit of your curriculum. You can decide what tutor you want, that kind of thing. But it is not parent funded. And that's the big bone of contention I have with calling EPIC homeschooling.
Right.
You're schooling at home.
Definitely, yeah.
But it's the funding.
Just another, I guess, kind of muddy definition there.
Great.
But okay, yeah, you can go ahead and go on. Okay, and then I just wanted to go over really quickly what is school choice, because those words would imply something that you couldn't possibly disagree with. I don't know, like I don't know. I'll use the example of Black Lives Matters. Who would ever disagree with that phrase? Everyone's in agreement. But then when you get into like, oh, it's an organization and they stand for a lot of things that I don't agree with. Okay, so same thing here.
Good point.
School choice. Immediately when I saw the phrase maybe 4 years ago, I thought, yeah, we need that. That sounds really good. I want that in Oklahoma. And I think it probably took me a year, honestly, to someone along the way challenged my thinking. Are you saying you don't have a choice? Oh, I'm being sold something I already have. So anyway, I decided I will not get into a lot of philosophical arguments today, although there are lots to be had. But I'm just going to look at the actual bill from last year that was passed. So what is school choice? School choice refers to lots of different programs or laws or policies that allow public funds to pay for private education. But it also includes things like charter schools, magnet schools, even open enrollment, could be state mandated sports programs, other things I probably haven't thought of, didn't put on there, but vouchers, refundable tax credits, education savings accounts, parental choice, parental rights. And parental rights doesn't always refer only to school choice. It could mean other things as well. Lots of muddiness going on there. And same thing with parent empowerment. It's one of those phrases. It kind of covers a lot of different parents wanting to be able to have the right to step inside of their children's public school would also be labeled as parental rights or parent empowerment, but it could also be a reference to school choice. Okay, but as for the definition today that we will use, that I'm going to be referring to when I say school choice, it's a program that allows public funds to pay for private education. Okay. So
if you don't mind, let me just jump on that one thing,
sure,
because we talked about this numerous times on this program.
Okay.
So people don't understand the definition or the difference between a tax credit and a voucher. And so I just want to say this really quickly. A voucher is something that it is a repayment for funds you haven't spent. A voucher is a repayment for funds you haven't spent. People, I don't think, understand that. So if you are, and we'll talk more about this in your slide presentation, but that's, I think, what I really want people to understand is that a voucher is money that you're getting back from the government that you haven't spent. A tax credit is money that you're keeping, which you would have given, well, you would have had to give, or the government would have taken from you by force. So a tax credit is your money that the government is benevolently not stealing from you or allowing you to have back. A voucher is money that you're getting from the government that you haven't spent. All right.
Yes.
Are we moving on?
Yeah, you can go ahead and move on. Okay, so I'm just gonna, like I said, I'm gonna try to not let anyone's eyes glaze over, but I'm gonna go through the bill that passed last year, House Bill number 1934. These are the things that I will talk about. and I didn't retype them. I just took an actual screenshot from the .gov website so as to not misconstrue anything. I will go just real quickly. I'll go over the legislative intent, the income tax credit verbiage, and I want to mention that the refundability is missing from the summary, which I feel like is important because when they go to vote, that summary paragraph is very important, and they're depending on that summary.
The legislators are.
Which is basically what changes everything about this bill, and it's missing from the summary. Prescribing maximum credit amounts, I'm going to just touch on that part, directing the commission to give first preference, and providing for promulgation of rules. Those are the things I'm going to touch on. Okay, you can go ahead on to the next slide. Okay, the legislative intent. Let me go over this really quick. It is the intent of the legislature that parents, legal guardians, custodians, and others with legal authority over children in this state be able to choose educational services that meet the needs of their individual children. This is great. I don't have any problem with this. That intent is clear and it's good. We don't actually need a law for that to happen because that was already happening prior to any law stating this intent, but I'm in agreement with the intent. Moving on, the legislature affirms.
Oops.
Oh, sorry. Go back.
Sorry.
The legislature affirms that parents and legal guardians are best suited to make choices to help children in this state reach their full potential and achieve a brighter future. Excellent. This is very good intent. And this does tell us that their intentions, however, with the problems that I'm going to go on and bring up, I know that they had good intentions. Now we all know about the the road to hell. But anyway, can you still hear me?
Yes.
I keep hearing myself breathing into it, and I don't know if you can hear that.
I can't. It's fine. No, don't worry about it. It's not distracting. At least not to me.
All right.
And I'm the only person who ever matters, right, Michael?
100%.
Okay. So, the one thing that's missing though is something to protect this intent.
Oh, excellent point.
So I talked to a lawmaker after the rules had been promulgated, and what she shared with me was that she really felt like by the time those rules were promulgated by the tax commission, she felt like their intent had already been misconstrued. Okay, so that's like immediately right out of the gate, the intention was already muddied. Now, what could happen 10 years down the road when the legislature is filled with a bunch of different people who weren't present as these decisions were being made, and as this great paragraph that affirms that parents and legal guardians are the best suited, when those same people aren't there to protect this intent, that's what we're concerned about. Okay, so my biggest problem here is that there's no verbiage here to protect their intent, as good as it is. You can go on. Okay, so this bill states that it's an income tax credit. I'm going to point out that what you said, the definition you gave, is not defined in the bill anywhere.
That's shocking.
It is shocking. And I went ahead and highlighted that it does actually say creating income tax credit for certain taxpayers. It's there in the bill, but not defined. I don't know. I don't know why. Okay, you can go on. Oh, but hold on. Stitt wants to do away with income tax altogether. And that is curious because then what will this be? I know you can't answer that.
Yeah, I mean, and that's a really good question. But my thought always pops into my head: we don't own our own property because of property tax. So I don't even really care about personal income tax because I can control that. I can't control the fact that the government will take my property if I don't pay my property tax or can't afford to. So that whole nonsense about personal income tax, I want to get rid of it. I want to get rid of it. That doesn't help freedom because we're at least we have some control over that. We have no control that we don't own our own property. Sorry, I just always have to say that for the people who don't understand it.
Well, and we've gone over multiple times, you know, that kind of that average school is going to cost, you know, we'll just say that average payout was like what, $7,500 back from the state, the tax credit. Well, you're going to have probably 95% of all the people that receive that tax credit, they don't pay anywhere near $7,500 in income tax in the first place. You know, they may pay $1,000, but they're not paying $7,500.
And you can't get back what you don't spend.
Yeah. So it's not really, I mean, if you're going, you know, true definition, you're not getting a tax credit. Just saying.
I did bring this up to, I don't remember which legislator I brought this up to. I thought it was an income tax credit, but we don't pay anywhere near that much income tax. Oh, well, you pay other taxes like in groceries and sales tax.
Yeah, Nathan Dawn gave me that one. Nathan Dawn gave me that line, and I went, but that's not income tax.
And of course I questioned and thought, let me go back and reread the bill. Maybe I made that part up. But no, I did go back and I read the bill, and it does actually say income tax, the same income tax that Stitt wants to do away with. Okay, I don't know.
But let me just point out here too, they're not lying because look at the wording, creating income tax credit for certain taxpayers. It's just that nobody ever went, so what are you talking about? What do you mean certain taxpayers?
Well, that's a good point. Yeah. Okay, well, let's go on to the next slide. Okay, so we all have looked at this part before, but I just need to show this before I move on to the next slide. Okay, the maximum credit amounts. If you make $75,000 or less, you can get up to $7,500, or you would get $7,500. And then, of course, the more money that you make, the less that you can get. Okay, and then we get down to homeschool, and homeschool is the one category that is not means tested, and the tax credit is doled out in a different way. So there's like another section of the bill. It's written, it's just, it almost feels a little like an afterthought, the way that it's added.
I was going to say greasy or slippery, but then that's.
Well, I'll go with that. I'll agree to that. It's just kind of like it's like a sticky note stuck on there afterwards. But okay, so keep going. All right, now we're going to get to what Michael just brought up, that if you make $75,000 a year, and to get these numbers, I just pulled up an Oklahoma income tax calculator, and I didn't even add in kids. Okay, so this is actually an example amount for if you are married filing together. So if you were to add kids in there, it'd be a little bit lower than this.
Goes way down, actually.
It's quite a bit lower.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so
anyway, this is max. We're talking this is max tax here.
Okay, and then I guess for the purpose of these examples, let's just go with one kid, even though if you look up the average number of children in Oklahoma, it's 1.9. Okay, so normally there's going to be 2 kids to look at in most households, but let's just go with 1. So if you look at that first category, where is the other roughly $5,000 coming from? Okay, and you go down another category to the $150,000 or less. Oh, okay, well now we got $3,000. Where's that other money coming from? Well, the answer is it's someone else's money. Okay, now let's go down a category.
What is someone else's money? Socialism. Socialism. Don't forget, we had a great prime minister who once said, it's all great until you run out of using other people's money.
Yes, that's a good point. Okay, let's just jump down to the if you make more than 250,000. Okay, those people are paying a good chunk of income tax. But again, sticking with our one child example, they can only access 5,000. So what's happening to the other 4,000? They're giving it away to someone else. They're forced to give it away to someone else. Okay, and then here we are back at homeschool. Again, just kind of tacked on there like a sticky note. And it's filed a different way, and it's not means tested. And so their tax due could be any amount, could be any one of the above. Okay, and just my title at the top of that one was, when is a tax credit really a handout? And the answer there is in the top two categories, is where it is a handout.
And it's important to point out that when you read the bill, it is the intent of the legislature that lower income families get this, and lower income families are going to be given the money before upper income families are. So you don't have a tax credit here system. You have a voucher system here.
Yes, exactly.
But they call it universal school choice, and that's an important thing, because school choice is one thing. Universal school choice is socialism. It's everybody paying for everybody else to go wherever they want to go to school. That's what universal school choice is. And that's what UNESCO wants. That's what all the little world people want, is that. And that's important to make that distinction, that it's universal school choice. That's what they call it.
And that, okay, well, the first problem here is that in these top two categories, we've got quite a bit of other people's money being given away. And then, of course, the second problem, which you've also brought up, is the preference that's given. And I'm going to highlight that in another slide. But this is the major problem with this bill, and why the title of it is really misleading, the tax credit title. And that is really the whole reason that homeschoolers have said, hey, this is not good. Okay, so moving on, you can go ahead on. The refundability. Okay, it is mentioned in the details. It's just not mentioned in the summary. If the credit exceeds the tax imposed by the section 2355, okay, of the tax code, the excess amount shall be refunded to the taxpayer. Okay, which means it doesn't matter how little you owe, you will be able to get this this handout. And not in all cases. Okay, we do understand that some people are actually going to be paying that much tax. Okay, and you can go ahead and move on to the next. Okay, this is the reference to the preference that's given. I've underlined it in red. The commission shall give first preference in making installments to taxpayers who qualify pursuant to Division 1 and 2. Okay, so that was exactly the two. Yep, right there. The top two categories are given preference. And you can go back to that other slide. Okay, to divisions 1 and 2 of subparagraph A of paragraph 1 of subsection C of this section. Okay, so there we have it. Preference is given to the top two categories to get someone else's money. Okay, you can move on. Okay, the next issue here is that the Tax Commission and Board of Education are tasked with promulgating the rules. Well, okay, I know the tax commissioner swears an oath to the Constitution, but I just have a problem with giving that much of the authority to the tax commission, because they basically got to set up how this whole thing worked.
Well, let me so nobody at the tax commission is elected. It's an appointed position. The head of the tax commission is an appointed position. Everybody who works there is, filtered down or, worked in that department.
Bureaucracy.
Amen. So if you had wanted to make it accessible to taxpayers who are having their money stolen for all of this to just, redistribute their funds, if you had wanted to make it accessible, you would have made a commission of elected officials who would have worked with the tax commission to create this. But there was none of that. This was all done in a back room. I have had people tell me that the people who were involved in the school choice movement in Oklahoma, the Oklahoma Federation of Children, people involved with OCPA, I had heard that they were the ones that were kind of helping to direct this. Those people are not elected. How did this get done in a bureaucracy situation where no taxpayers whose money are being used for this had a say?
That brings up one point that I wanted to make about this. I feel like tasking the tax commission and the Board of Education with essentially with preserving our rights, it moves the power further away from the people, because of course the legislature that's keeping the power closest to the people, but moving it into the hands of bureaucrats, it just moves that power further away from us. Now, one thing I am going to bring up here was that I actually could not find any Board of Education rules that they had promulgated regarding the tax commission or regarding the tax credit. I don't know if we have yet to see that, or if this verbiage here enables them to do it should they see the need. I don't know. I couldn't find any. Have you found that?
I never did find what the tax commission produced in the way of rules. If somebody else knows
I have that.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I have that. It's but this second sentence says that the State Board of Education may promulgate rules.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
And I have not found any.
Well, I looked through all of the rules that were written this year, and no, there was nothing in it.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe that's good, but the verbiage here certainly does say that they can.
They can.
Yeah. So anyway, okay, you can move on. All right. Well, what does that mean for homeschoolers? And I'm happy to say that this year it doesn't mean anything. But we can't even actually access it yet. Bottom line, what it means for homeschoolers is you want to stay away. Because unfortunately, remember that sticky note that we've referred to, or I think you called it greasy something.
Greasy and slippery.
Yeah, it's tacked on there with the other vouchers or handouts that will inevitably invite scrutiny and oversight because it is someone else's money and we are grouped in with them. Okay, so whatever accountability measures that will eventually happen will happen to everyone that's written into that bill. I had the thought, will they leave homeschoolers alone simply because it's the one part of the bill that isn't means tested and because the credit given is a lower amount? It really depends on who's sitting in all those seats at the time when something can finally get passed. will enough of the people who are there right now, who had that, remember that intent that we looked at, that was okay. They affirmed that parents are the best ones to make the choices, right? They had good intentions. It's my understanding that at this point, we won't see something passed that threatens homeschool. And I want to be careful with that kind of verbiage, that threatens homeschool.
Well, let me jump in and I'll take it away from you since you're,
go ahead.
Because I don't,
Yeah.
You know me, I could care less what I say.
Go ahead.
We had a Democrat legislator this year at the beginning of the year, and I don't know why I can't think of her name. Swink. That's right. Swope. Sorry,
Yeah.
Swope. Swope, Amanda, right? Amanda Swope, who came in and basically said, you know what, I'm going to pass a bill that all homeschoolers have to be regulated and they have to take the state test and we have to pull them in so that we can, because we're afraid that kids who are homeschooled are being abused and we just don't know anything about it, blah, blah, blah. Never mind that we have a mandatory reporting rule in this state. So if any kid goes to the emergency room or in some way confronts a doctor and they have anything that they can't explain, then the doctor has to report it. So fie on that. That's a big lie. But they always use that as a reason, oh, you homeschoolers, you are in your houses all day and nobody knows what's happening. Give me a break. Mandatory reporting in Oklahoma. Okay. So she was going to make homeschoolers fall under all of these categories. Well, the problem that we're having today is that our Republican legislators have been getting more and more and more like Democrats in the way that they approach legislation. And I think
the way they solve problems.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I believe that this bill was a perfect example of one. It's like they don't even understand what is and isn't invasive on personal liberty anymore. And Republicans, that was the first one on the list, is that we uphold personal liberty. That's what Republicans do. And when you start having bureaucrats involved in private things like home education, which we've decided, which is in the state constitution, by the way, other means of education means education in your home. So it's constitutionally protected, yet they don't even care because it's all about control. Control isn't about personal liberty. Control is the opposite of personal liberty. And so you have to be so careful because these legislators anymore don't understand the difference between control and personal liberty and what infringes on personal liberty. And, oh, I'm not really controlling anybody, but you are when you start putting rules and regulations on things and you take money and you redistribute that. I've heard legislators say, well, we're not for socialism, but I'm for these vouchers. How do you hold those two? They're completely competing ideals. But these people hold them in their heads and you just want to go, if I shake you real hard, will that sort that out?
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Abuse,
okay. Shut up now, abuse. Jenni.
And no. You're good. You're good. Let me see if I can finish my thought.
Okay, good.
When I say threatens homeschool, I'm not talking about the end of homeschool. Like you've brought up, it's written into our state constitution. I don't believe it will ever be outlawed. That's not what I'm referring to. I'm talking about a gradual loss of freedom.
Yeah.
That is a threat to homeschool. It's the same thing. Yeah. Okay. So going back to what does that mean for homeschoolers? And again, bottom line is stay away from it. I think, wasn't it Reagan who said, I'm from the government and I'm here to help?
The 13 worst words in the American language is I'm from the government and I'm here to help.
Yeah. Okay. It's never help. So, bottom line is stay away from it. Okay, but I was saying, I had the thought, since it's such a small amount, is there any possibility that they'll leave us alone for a greater number of years? Maybe, maybe. Also because we tend to speak up when bills come along. So maybe we can buy a few more years without an intrusion. Maybe I'm just being overly positive. Another thing I want to bring up is, if some listener today is considering taking that credit, consider all of the information that you have to give away in order to obtain that credit. I mean, just you can start throwing things out. You have to give away the information that your child is homeschooled. Okay, so this is the beginning of data collection. Is that stated in the bill? No. But you are giving this information to the state government, and they do say that the information will need to be public about how many of these credits are used.
Because it's taxpayer money, and
Yes.
we have to have accountability for taxpayer money.
Exactly. Exactly. But it's not just that. It's what curriculum did they use? That you have to retain and submit your receipts. What teacher did you use for voice lessons for your music class? What Spanish tutor did you use? It's a lot of not only your own children's information and what's happening in your own home, but it's other people too. These vendors who are offering very precious services, and you're going to be giving away their information as well. So yeah, if anyone just happens to be listening today, just really, really think about that. Is it worth it? I would, in my opinion, I could easily say no, it's certainly not worth it. And the last thing here now is a publicly funded homeschool. What? We went over the definition of homeschool. So how could it be publicly funded? It's just a thought I'll leave you with. Would it still be homeschool if it was publicly funded?
Well, and let me just say, we've already talked about people who believe that they're homeschooling, but they're publicly funded because they use Epic.
Right. And if someone says, yeah, but that section of the bill was written differently. You're right. It was written differently. And in general, most homeschoolers are going to owe $1,000 in taxes, and those checks aren't going directly to your vendors. They're going back to the individual, like the way that we used to think that a tax credit was. That section of the bill, that sticky note, that greasy section, is written as what we previously believed a tax credit to be. However, you have to divulge the information that you're homeschooling. Okay. And that was one of the things I know that homeschoolers had written a bill for a true tax credit, so that you couldn't obtain more money past
what you had
zero.
already put in. Yeah.
Okay, like you couldn't just get free money. But that bill did not require homeschoolers to identify themselves as homeschoolers, so that it didn't allow for the data collection. Okay, we can move on. Okay, so back, I think it was March 28th, of this year. I'm moving on to an interesting topic here. This is something that happened as a result of this bill passing. Walters announced the creation of the Office of School Choice, which to date has not actually happened, but I'm sure it's in the works, because there was this press release stating that it would be happening. It's supposed to be a one-stop shop for all things related to school choice and parental empowerment in Oklahoma. Okay, so no matter what the He wants all types of school information to be available from the state website. Well, I took a couple of days to really think about this. What does this really mean? And this feels scratchy. Something, like this is really bothering me. But it took me a couple of days to put into words, why was this bothering me? The state website does, of course, have a page about homeschooling. As of right now, it's there. But what really bothered me was that I felt like this created a false sense of authority, that citizens would need to go to the state to get their information about private education. Okay, let's just go back to our definition. You don't have to go to return to the slide, but what was the definition of private education? It does not involve the state. It doesn't involve the government.
It's private because it's privately funded.
Right.
There being two categories, public and private, right?
Yes.
Privately funded.
So I took a couple of days, thought about it. I went ahead and I sent an email to my contact in Walter's office, and I asked about it. I listed a few concerns, not every concern. Like I said, I don't want his eyes to glaze over because I have a lot of concerns. But the response that I got was I decided not to include the whole response here. The person who chose to respond to me, he's not the enemy, he's just doing his job. But his response was somewhat dismissive of my concerns. But you can go ahead and go to the next slide. This was a quote from it. I understand your reservations about government involvement in all the non-public forms of education. Well, the word non-public was not in my vocabulary at that point, and so I had not included it in my email to him. I asked about private education, but the response that I got included the word non-public. And so it took me a day. I have a slow response time, perhaps, but I'm chewing on that.
Wait, maybe you could just be thoughtful.
I'm chewing on that email that I got, and I thought, what is that? So what is non-public? What does it mean? So I Googled it, non-public school. And the top choice that came up was the Federal Office of Non-Public Education. I clicked on it. What is this? I've never heard of this. And I clicked on their frequently asked questions, and you can go to the next slide. This is question number 1. Does the department have jurisdiction over private elementary and secondary schools and homeschools? This is exactly the question I had, so it was really convenient that it was question number 1. Okay, again, I want to mention this is not Oklahoma. That's not where I got this information from. We can put up a link if anyone actually wants to see it. But again, this is federal. Okay. The department does not have jurisdiction over private elementary and secondary schools unless they are direct recipients of federal financial assistance from the department. Nor does the department have jurisdiction over homeschools. The regulation of private and homeschools is primarily the responsibility of state and local governments. Okay, well, I disagree with that second sentence, but I did want to point out that it's there.
So let me share my screen with you just really quickly.
Sure.
Maybe.
Yes. This is the page.
What does that say? liaison to the non-public school community for the U.S. Department of Education. Falls into two categories: leadership and outreach. ONPE represents the interests, activities, and needs of the private elementary and secondary school community, and also consults with the private school community on the participation of students and teachers in programs and initiatives at the U.S. Department of Education. And then they even talk about their mission and information about non-public education. I was aghast when I found that in the rules to be promulgated by the State Department of Education, and I will say this, people are frustrated with me that I don't go out and just, oh, Ryan Walters, he's the greatest. He's the greatest. Well, I'm not going to do that about anybody because I'm a watchdog. So I'm not going to like you so much that I can't find the wrong things that you're doing and bring them to light. So that's one reason. So those of you who are aggravated with me, you can take that up with me in a later time, but that's the reason why. And one of the things that I'm very aggravated with Ryan Walters about right now is that in his, and I did this is all on, we did a live video on this specific thing going right over this. In the rules, there is a rule that was promulgated, and if it gets passed, if Governor Stitt signs it, it will go into law. Basically, it will be, a rule for the Oklahoma State Department of Education that allows them to work with private schools and hook them up with the federal Department of Education to get them money. This is wrong. This is wrong. And if you don't get it, let me explain it briefly and succinctly. You have only two categories: private and public. There are no other categories. And if you want to tell me there are, then you don't understand government, because we have private, which is non-government, and we have government, which is all government. Government is, it actually personifies the lack of liberty. It personifies intrusion into private life. Private, on the other hand, does not. It's completely opposite. And so when you have a situation in which our State Department of Education is okay with infusing federal dollars into private schools, and then even including the word private, when they talk about that school, they are completely wrong. There is no gray area here. You're completely wrong. Once the federal government, once the state gives money to anything private, because of the accountability and transparency we were just talking about momentarily, just a little bit ago, this is exactly why they then become a subset of the government, because there are only two categories: private and public. There.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they said it's private, Jenny. That's the whole thing. Just because they say it, is there? You also have school choice. Remember,
Jenny. I don't want to get too far from our.
Oh yes, no. I'm so sorry,
but
Sarah.
No. Would you be able to easily pull up that rule? Because it does it ties in right now with what we're talking about.
Can you give me 1 second to see if I can locate it? And I might could go. Can you go ahead while
Can you move to the next slide?
I can, absolutely. Give me 1 quick second. There you go.
Okay. So talking about government money going directly to the private schools. Okay. This verbiage right here is pulled from the tax commission rules that were promulgated for this tax credit bill. Okay, it says warrants, I'm starting right at the top of the red underlined portion. Warrants made payable to the taxpayer and mailed to the private school. Okay. So the check, a warrant is a check, basically. The check is made payable to the taxpayer. So then the taxpayer's name is actually on the check, not the school's name. But it is not mailed to the taxpayer, it is mailed to the school. Okay, that's greasy right there. I understand why they did it, because they're trying to minimize corruption.
Yes,
But
they're afraid that if it goes to the taxpayer will spend it. Correct. Yeah.
right. I wish that the infrastructure for corruption hadn't been set up, but
very good point.
The taxpayer shall restrictively endorse the warrant or the check to the private school. Okay, so the next instruction is there. The money, of course, is not a true tax credit. You don't get to do what you want with it. You actually do have to sign over the check to the school. Now, further, go down a paragraph. Each participating private school will respond electronically to the tax commission's request to verify. Okay, and you can keep reading there if you want, but this is direct communication between the school and the state. Now, yes, it does say that the check is written to the taxpayer and not the school, but this is real slippery. As if we go back and look at that verbiage from again, the federal site, it is not an Oklahoma site, but the Office of Non-Public Education. If that's what gives jurisdiction over private school, then what our current situation, I'm just saying it's real sticky. That's all I'm saying.
And you know what? I'm going to go farther than you because you're a nice person and I'm not. I think a lot of this is willful. These people knew what was going on. And I personally believe you have to destroy private everything to get to your socialist utopia. And I don't understand how people don't understand that either. And you've created a situation where you're playing into the socialist utopia by saying, here are these tax credits. We're only going to give them to people that don't make enough money for a credit. So we're going to redistribute the wealth to people who have not put in money because of fill in the blank, whatever reasoning they have. So to create the socialist utopia, you have to destroy everything private. Would everybody agree with that?
Okay, sort of.
How do you have private? And that's what Marx said, right? You can't have private anything. It all has to be public in order for everybody to share in that.
Okay. Okay, let's come back to that.
Oh, but you had a point. Give me your point. I don't need to be right all the time. I like to learn.
I'm not.
But
it's not that I
that's my
disagree with you.
perspective.
I definitely see the aspect of socialism here, for sure. But okay, let's go ahead and let me screen share.
Okay.
That. Oh, wait, it's already in there. How do I do it?
Oh, it is. Hold on one second. Is this the one you want?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. So if you do some reading, that there are a number of groups that people from the left and people from the right who have spoken out against school choice, and it's all for different reasons. A lot of people from the left are just very pro-public, and they see a different set of problems from what we've brought up today. And again, I'm sticking with I'm not going to get into all the philosophical arguments.
And that's fine.
But something that I want to bring up here, and I think we're at a good point to do it. Can you see my mouse moving?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. So these right here, these are all philanthropists who have, some sort of foundation or a corporation that has given a lot of money into various organizations or advocacy groups that spend a lot of money to change public opinion about school choice. So when Milton Friedman came up with this, what was this, back in the late 70s maybe, or
Yes.
or early 80s?
No, 70s.
Okay. He had a hard time getting anyone on board. And I've listened to him talk about it, and honestly, all the people that brought arguments to him, he really did not debate them. He didn't have, at least at that point, he did not have any good arguments to argue them or to debate them. He kind of ignored their arguments and kept. It wasn't a good debate, is what I'm saying. Okay, I'm going back to these philanthropists. Okay, they're not elected, and we also can't get rid of them since they're not elected. But for whatever reason, these various foundations have signed on to the school choice movement. And you don't see the name here, but Bill Gates is actually another one who has given a significant amount of money to, it's on this list here somewhere. Reason, I think it was.
Well, Walmart's not on there either, and I mean, I can prove to you that, the Walmart Foundation gives
millions. Yes. They're changing, they're shifting public opinion. They're having success in changing the landscape of all education, and I'm not just talking about private, but education across the board in the whole U.S. These people here, well, plus a few others, and this is really not where the ideas and the money and public opinion should be coming from. It should be coming from the people, not corporations, not mega millionaire philanthropists.
Well, and if you saw the podcast that we did with Julianne Romanello on private organizations and how since the 20s and before, private organizations have been shaping America through grants. So it's as
Yes.
they'll say, we want to see this end goal. We'll give you a grant if you're going to do this thing that will get us toward this end goal.
A step.
And people are so interested in just having that money. And and you alluded to this earlier on, people do not want to look ahead. They'll look down, but they're not going to look backwards and they're not going to look ahead.
Yes.
And it's just like you said earlier about what's going to happen in the legislature when we don't have the people who were in there before. People, we have to be more forward thinking. You have to look ahead and say to yourself, what if? And
what are the unintended consequences?
Correct.
Yeah. Yes. Let's see. Am I losing my train of thought here? Maybe.
They're unelected people who influence public thought.
Okay. So let's take, what's the one here? American Federation for Children. I don't remember which group it was 4 years ago that I was getting bombarded with a lot of Facebook advertisements. Remember I said, yeah, that's what we need. We need school choice, until someone said to me, what choice can't you make? Oh, I hadn't thought of that. Remember I cited my slow reaction time. But looking back, I don't know. I'm wondering, I'm curious, was that advertisement from American Federation for Children? I don't know, but I bet you it was from one of these various advocacy groups that we see on the screen right now. One of them had paid for that, and it was to change my perception of what school choice meant. And I bought into it for a little while.
Well, and I've had people tell me, I mean, people in there's a guy that writes for Batesline in Tulsa. He's called me a leftist numerous times over my stance against school choice, that public money shouldn't be going to private schools. And that's the thing that they're doing, is they're propagandizing people against people who have rational thought and just want to ask these questions and say, how does giving public money to a private school keep it private?
Right. Yeah, which is a very logical thought.
Oh,
Okay.
you wanted me to show you, so I found it.
Oh, yeah.
Rule.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, show us.
Yes, let me show you the rule. I'm sharing so many screens, it's hard for me.
Oh, and I remember why I wanted to show you that too. So I'm going to write that down because otherwise I'll forget. Okay, go ahead. Show us the rule.
Okay. So here is the article that I wrote regarding this particular thing. Oh, it was there. Oh, did you add it? Thank you. So this was the uniform provisions, private schools, participation by private school children and teachers. So basically, I wrote a blog about this to say the text of the proposed rule is right there. You can look at it. But the subchapter 17 in the Oklahoma State Department of Education rules were federal programs complaint procedures. And I thought, what in the world? Why do we have a federal complaint? Why would you be doing that for private schools? Mm-hmm. And so I went down and I looked at it. And so it's under covered programs, all the existing categories are revoked and the new ones are replaced. Never was this listed under covered programs previously, making it an entirely new section. So part of section 7881 of Title 8, participation by private schools, children and teachers. So basically, we're getting in this rule is the OSDE must plan to take and disperse federal funds to private schools. Why would there be a specific rule added so that private school associated families can complain about private schools not following federal dictates if that weren't the case? So basically, under the Oklahoma Parental Tax Credit, state tax dollars are going to pay private tuition at private schools. So basically that is making those private schools public. And now because now they're non-public. Remember, you use that term, right? Mm-hmm. Non-public. So private schools that are getting public money are now non-public. It's an entirely new category. Right. And so now the parents of kids who are going to these private schools can complain about, well, they're not following this federal rule or that federal rule. I'm going to complain about Title IX. All of these things that Governor Stitt and Ryan Walters have come out with saying, well, we're not going to do DEI here. We're not going to do whatever. Well, once you hook a private to the feds, you have an end around any of these rules that you keep putting in place in these laws saying no DEI here. Well, if you're taking federal funds, you get DEI.
Right.
If you're taking federal funds, you get Title IX, all of that, boys and girls bathrooms, all of that stuff in a private school. And then what do private school parents do? Because they're not knowing that this is going on. I would guarantee you they're not knowing that this is going on. They think they're going to a private school. Their kids aren't in a private school anymore. They're in a non-public school. So this is really bad juju, and I don't like what's going on because this was all very under the table. It wasn't out in the public light. Unless you read the rules, you didn't know this was in here. And you have Superintendent Walters and Governor Stitt saying things that are not lining up with what are in the rules and the laws that they're passing. And I don't like that. I don't like disingenuity, because to me, that's lying. If you're going to be disingenuous, it's a lie. And so I personally, I'm not speaking for any of you guys. Me personally, I'm very upset about this, because I don't think that's right. Now you have a third category: public, private, non-public. No. Okay, I'll get rid of that, and let's finish up with you.
Yeah.
Get you back on here and going, so I stay out of your.
Right. Okay. So I was acknowledging in this that, yes, the check is actually made out to the taxpayer, but pointing out it is very sticky, because the communication is directly between the state and the so-called private school. Okay. Now I just want to, I'm about to turn it back over to you, but I've got 2 pages of questions. I would encourage anyone who is listening, screenshot these if you're on the fence about this whole topic. I don't know what happened to my little bullet points. They all disappeared. But anyway.
I will say that's a problem with PowerPoint.
It's all right. Ask yourself these questions. Screenshot them. Ask yourself these questions. Talk to your spouse. Have a back and forth. Answer them between you. And then also, if you are adamantly for it, if you're adamantly against it, okay, still ask yourself some of these questions and have a conversation. If public money is what makes a public school public, then what does public money make private schools? I'm not going to answer it. You can answer it yourself. And I'm not talking to you. I'm talking about anyone who might be listening. Why would Bill Gates give $1 million to support vouchers? Okay, he gave $1 million to I couldn't find it at the moment, but one of the advocacy groups that advocates for vouchers. Well, same thing with the Walton Foundation. I think they've given more than Bill Gates, significantly more. The left would say they want to privatize education. I think private might not really be the right word there, because of because of the muddiness of what we've looked at. It's not really private, but yet it's also not completely public either. What is their real agenda? I don't have the answer, but I just know that I don't want Bill Gates and the Walton Foundation and these other various foundations making the decisions about what American education looks like. Are private schools more likely to use the extra income to build more classrooms? Or will they simply raise tuition? We have plenty of examples to look at that can answer that question for us. In order to defend school choice as free market. So this is one of the common defense arguments. It'll create competition. It applies free market principles. Yes, it certainly does create competition, but is that the definition of free market? Is that the definition of capitalism? No, it's not. You'd have to rewrite the definition in order to use that as a defense. Free market and capitalism is free of government intervention. It's not a competing for government dollars. Oops, I answered the question. Okay, let me move on. Well, the point was for a listener to answer it themselves. Okay. The United Nations sees school choice as a means to bring their agenda into private schools and homes. They see equity in education as being a top priority. I don't think that people choose private school or homeschool because they really want to promote the UN agenda in their home. So
can I interrupt just a second? Can you
yes,
please give everybody the name of the document that you're talking about? Because I didn't pull it up on a screen, and I don't want people thinking we just pulled this out of,
right.
this is just our personal thinking. That's not it.
Okay,
The
Global Education Monitoring Report. Yes, monitoring report. Global Education Monitoring Report.
Google that or search it.
Yes, they
and
put one
find that.
out every, it's not every year, but it's like every other year or so, maybe every 18 months. And I think it's the 2021 edition that talks about non-state actors. And again, it was one of those like, what? This is not in my vocabulary. I don't know what that means. And had to keep reading and then realize, oh, they're talking about private.
Well, in homeschool, they specifically mention homeschool
they do mention
in
homeschool.
that document.
Yes. But go read it. Go see. Why would they go see? Why would they embrace school choice? Okay, you can go to the next slide. Think logically. Can you think of anything that the government funds, but it doesn't also oversee? I won't answer it. I will resist the urge. Jenni, I see you looking off.
I'm trying really hard
I know.
you get finished.
Okay, since those with an AGI over 250,000 have to fund everyone else's vouchers, would this be a redistribution of wealth? How does this bill address any of the public school issues? Do you support universal welfare or universal health care? Or there are other universals, universal income. Do you support any of those universals? If not, why not? And could that person apply the same thinking to this case? Did you support Obama's college tax credit? Did you happen to notice what happened to the price, to the tuition, to college tuition after that went into effect? Do you support Biden's college loan forgiveness program? If not, why not? And could you apply the same thinking here? What gives the government the right to force you to pay for someone else's children's private education?
Those are excellent questions.
So I think it ties in here, but I'd love to look at the screenshot from Corey DeAngelis.
Let's do that.
Yeah. So Corey DeAngelis, go ahead. You know what? I'm done. You go ahead.
Well, no. I mean, you and I both know about this.
Okay, so this is his page from the American Federation for Children. Okay, which we have we've mentioned today
numerous times.
I think all he's missing is a pink sweater. If he had a pink sweater on, then it'd be better.
So he's
well. Do you notice how all of these school choice people, the people that they put out as spokespeople, are these adorable young men, and it's like, oh, and everybody, oh, it just. So here's something interesting. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. Sarah, didn't you mention the UN a minute ago and a report and wanting to monitor homeschool? And oh my goodness, Corey DeAngelis was
same guy
at the UNESCO Inclusive Policy Lab.
So what's interesting? Cato Institute is actually on that list that I brought up earlier. And we need to probably include the link to to view that article, just so that if someone wants to see those various, it's a spider web, really.
Oh yes, can you put that in the can you type it in the private chat, and then we'll put it up on the up here.
So the Cato Institute is interwoven with other various organizations and philanthropists. They like share staff, or they'll one of the corporations might pay for a meeting. There's all kinds of interconnectivity there. But yes, it is really interesting that Corey DeAngelis was on the part of UNESCO.
Well, and here's the other thing that really, and this is just super hinky. So there was a private blogger who came out, or an independent blogger came out with this and said, why are you guys listening to Corey DeAngelis? He used to be in the UNESCO Inclusive Policy Lab. He used to be like an expert for UNESCO. As soon as that got out, one day I went out to catch a screenshot of it again, just to see it, because I had lost this one. And I went out to, and son of a gun, the requested page, Inclusive Policy Lab users, Corey DeAngelis teams, could not be found. So if you were on that and suddenly you just pull it, again, slippery, yuck. That's yuck.
Yeah.
You're hiding something.
Right. Yeah. So if someone wants to see that page that you just pulled up, they can't see it anymore.
Nope. They can see this. And the reason why, when I screenshot things, I'll like put exactly where I'll include my URL so that people can see I didn't just make it up.
Right.
And because I don't want people to say, well, you just made that up or something. No, I didn't. I took a screenshot, and you can tell I took a screenshot from there. So no.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That's good.
But this is the one that you were talking about, because every once in a while, I don't follow Corey DeAngelis because he makes me seriously want to get a barf bag out. This person is he is such a heavy propagandizer. I mean, that's just what he's paid to do. When he does what he's paid to do, is propagandize people.
Yeah, but it sounds good, Jenny. It sounds so good. It's just
more reasons we need school choice, more equity. Isn't that what they say in the UN?
Yes, that's the biggest reason that the UN cites.
And it's Corey DeAngelis, who used to work at UNESCO. It's his
first
and
I noticed one. National School Choice Week. Okay, that is that's on that list that I showed you guys too. So yeah, the spider web gets thicker.
Taxpayer savings, better outcomes. Show me one study that shows better outcomes that wasn't done with 15 kids over a period of time throughout. No, there aren't any studies for this. And the people in Arizona who have instituted universal school choice, I think you were in the same thread with me, weren't you? And it was on like a Facebook thread where there was a lady from Arizona who was like, they're not telling you the whole story here. Homeschoolers, I mean, we're losing freedoms here once they did that.
No, I've actually looked for that information. Yeah, I wonder if you could find it.
Yeah, I think it was in a thread that we are on together, and I'll see if I can go back and find it. But there was a lady who was from Arizona and was saying, no, this isn't true. This hasn't helped anything.
Well, I don't have any, I've got nothing to back this up. And I realize there are a lot of moving parts when it comes to ACT scores and SAT scores, but I think we've got like 31, maybe now with Texas, 32 states that have some form of school choice. But ACT scores and SAT scores are falling.
Interesting.
So it seems like, now, again, I'm acknowledging there are a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of reasons why that would affect those scores. But if it was working, those scores should not be falling across the board. I'm saying they shouldn't be falling.
Well, and not only that, our state proficiency scores shouldn't be falling. And I don't Michael, how many times have we shown how horrible our Oklahoma proficiency scores are for English and math?
But those proficiency scores don't include private education, right?
Oh, for sure.
But they do?
Sure. No, you're right.
No.
They do not. Yes.
Well, okay. But my point with bringing up the ACT and SAT would be that these kids who are coming out of school choice programs are still somehow producing lower SAT and ACT scores.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, acknowledging, I know there's a lot of moving parts there. It's not like I'm not blaming that on private schools. I'm questioning whether or not this program is actually working.
Right.
But okay,
well, and
go
here's
ahead.
this one we were talking about, that you can't just cancel student debt. So he doesn't understand that a voucher is redistribution of wealth. This is redistribution of wealth. And yet they literally hold these same thoughts,
Right.
competing thoughts in their head, and think it's okay. And he's like, well, you just can't cancel. Then how can you stand up for school choice? How can you do the whole giving people's money away to other people
Which
to put
is
their kids in
canceling
private
student debt.
education?
Yeah.
So this is what we were talking about earlier and what you alluded to. I wanted to pull this out because I thought this was so important. American Federation for Children, founded by Betsy DeVos and her husband. We do have an Oklahoma Federation for Children here. It was been run by Jennifer Carter for years and years and years. She used to be the chief of staff when Janet Barisi was the state superintendent. Because most of these people never go away. They just move around inside the system. It's called the swamp people. That's what the former president called it.
Thank you, Jenni,
mm-hmm.
for that clarification.
Yes. So look at this. Their revenue was $9 million. They spent $8.84 million. That's not a drop in the bucket.
Wow.
And it's interesting because when I went, I am sharing a screen and I wanted to, hold on a second. Okay, so I want to share this screen. So this is the American Federation for Children website. And the thing that I thought was absolutely so interesting about this is if you go down here, all of the school choice programs nearest you, what is school choice? Let me see. Hold on a second. Let me find what I was looking for. About AFC, who we are, our team. Get a load of this. I know you're bored. Hang on.
I want to say that the person you're looking for is gone.
Oh, no, I'm not even looking for anybody. I just want to point out this is the number of people that are employed.
Pretty big team there.
By this organization to propagandize school choice.
Oh, okay. Well, when I first realized that I was getting texts and mail from this organization, I looked them up and I found Joe Lieberman.
Oh my goodness, really interesting.
But I looked again yesterday and he had vanished too. I don't know what happened there.
So think about it. 8.84, you're going to have to spend a whole bunch of money to fund that many people. I mean, that's just insane, that many people, but that's not all they do. So all of these little buzzy bees in this school choice hive are taking that money and going and giving it to legislators, come on, you really got to pass universal school choice. You really got to pass universal school choice. So they're lobbying our legislators. These are unelected nonprofit people who are lobbying our legislators using these millions and millions of dollars.
But they don't just lobby the legislators, they lobby us.
Oh, right.
Definitely.
They send us mail on behalf of our legislators. So I got a piece of mail.
You say mail, I'd say propaganda. That's what I would say.
Sure. Well, no, you're
reclassify
absolutely
that.
right. It is propaganda. I got mail with my own legislator's face on it. And the mail that I received said, thank you. It was Ross Ford. Thank you, Ross Ford, for voting for school choice or something to that effect. Well, he didn't send that out to thank his own self. The American Federation sent it to my house to, yes, propagandize me, to tell me I'm thankful that he voted that way. But I believe I showed it to some others, and most people that I showed it to had also received one that appeared to have come from their own legislator.
So if you have to, I mean, think of what propaganda is, right? Propaganda is a tool used by Marxists to change public opinion. And it's not necessarily true information that's used. It's not necessarily, it's anything that they feel like will influence people who are listening to want to do what they say or influence them in the direction that they want to go. Propaganda costs millions and millions and millions of dollars. If you have to propagandize something, what's going on?
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to bring up all those philanthropists that are changing the landscape of American education through, yes, exactly what you've said. Essentially, it's propaganda.
Now, not only do you have the American Federation for Children, Inc., but you also have the American Federation for Children Growth Fund, Inc. So this is another way that they collect money and then send it out to propagandize people. Look at the amount of money we're dealing with here. 10.1 million, 9 million, 8 million, 10 point. This is a lot of money, and it's not you and me giving $5 here and there. So think about that.
No.
This isn't the American public going, oh, we really want school choice. We really want, here's my $10. That's all I can afford. These are philanthropists. These are people like Bill Gates and Jim Walton's fund who put money into this stuff to change public perception.
Yeah.
I think I've got one more slide in here and then we're done with that. So this is what I was telling you about. This is off of the Walton Family Foundation itself. Mm-hmm. So here's the Alliance for School Choice doing business as the American Federation for Children Growth Fund, $2.1 million, 37.5, $2.4 million, $2.5 million. People, when will you get the idea that school choice is a propaganda tool? And you're going to call me a leftist because I don't agree with giving public money to private schools or homeschoolers and creating one universal education umbrella that nobody can get out from under? And I'm a leftist?
Apparently.
Go figure that out.
Yeah, I mean, you'd have to redefine leftist to call you a leftist, but.
Well, guys, we have gone significantly over our time here, but honestly, Sarah, I have enjoyed having you on so much, and I'm sorry, we kept interjecting, but I do think that this was really a pretty well-rounded podcast. I mean, I think we pulled a lot of information in here for people from a whole bunch of different sources.
Yeah.
So to leave the podcast for today, just give me your kind of final upshot, and what can we do and that kind of thing.
Well, what I'd really like to see happen is for, the sticky note that I've referred to, I'd like to see the sticky note removed. That money hasn't been accessed yet. No one has claimed this on their taxes yet. And we do know of 6 legislators that asked for that section to be removed. And they were each privately told no. I don't think they ever found each other prior to the bill being passed. But we know now, of course, hindsight's 2020. We know now of at least 6 who asked, which tells us that homeschoolers across the state were talking to their legislators about this issue.
We have a lot of people on here this morning. Hey guys, would you type in, if you're, just say something like, I'm concerned too, or, something, just so that people know it's not just Sarah and Michael and I on here banging a gong. I mean, obviously there are a number of people on here that are interested in this. So, if you are, just let us know what you think.
So I'd love to see people continue to talk to their legislators about getting homeschoolers removed. I mean, if someone has a vision for repealing the whole bill, great. I can't see that pathway, but I'm up to support it. Anyone's efforts for that, but my vision at this point is to start talking to your legislator about getting that, like we've put it, greasy part, or the sticky note. Let's talk about getting that part removed. And in the meantime, answer those questions, have a conversation with your fellow homeschool parents. And stay away from the credit, is my personal opinion.
Well,
I'll leave it there.
Thank you so much for all the information that you've shared with us today. And I am so grateful for your voice and your research and just your intellect here. Just asking questions is so important. And thank you for reminding us of that. Questions never hurt. They can only help.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
Well, and thank you again for being on. Really, really enjoyed it. And we'll keep in touch.
Okay.
And if you've got something else that pops up, please just let me know.
Okay. We'll do.
All right. We'll talk to you soon.
All right.
All right. Bye-bye. She did such an outstanding job with that. I mean, I'm going to add one thing over what she said at the end and that is, share this with your friends. Please share this with your neighbors and the people who want to call you a leftist because you're not all in for school choice. Talk to them and use the information that we gave you here in this podcast, which was a lot. I mean, there was a lot of different information here. I'll pull out several little clips like I normally do. And one of them is going to be Sarah's questions. So that you just have that little clip of the questions, and all you have to do is just send that 4 minutes or so to, whoever it is that you're going to send, and just say, hey, can you answer these questions?
Yeah. Well, the biggest argument that I always heard from everyone, and this was kind of I'm not going to say argument, I'm going to say defense of school choice was always, well, if my kid was in public school, they'd be paying, that money would be going towards their education anyway. So I should be able to decide where that allocated money gets spent. I mean, and that was the number one defense, that I heard hundreds of parents, say to me. But it's just like anything. The only way the government grows is by this gradual encroachment. If we open the door, which they sensationalize everything. They make it look like it's so beneficial for us. Everything is so good, so great. You're going to have so many benefits.
Propaganda.
We have no benefits from the government. I mean, they're a huge mass that's just cancerous mass, completely out of control. And all they do is just continue to grow into every little thing that we allow them to grow into. So we're already one of the worst education places in this country. We've talked about it multiple times. I mean, how much more government intervention do we need to get better? We need less. If we're not taking all those federal funds, then all those other rules don't apply anymore. And you can actually concentrate your time on reading and writing and math and the things that need to be taught instead of doing all this other stuff. I mean, it's another way for government to just completely get their foot in the door through propaganda. And then they're going to wind up, it's not this year where the problem is, or next year, even a couple years down the road. It's 5-10 years from now. What is this thing going to look like? What are your rights going to be when it comes down to that?
Well, we've always said camel's nose under the tent, and people roll their eyes and go, but that's, how did we get Social Security? How do we get any of these giant government programs that we have right now? Well, it started with a camel's nose under the tent. It started with the one thing. And as soon as we let homeschoolers get in any way involved with the government, you become non-public.
Yeah. And then it turns into its own monster that's literally too big to fail. Now you cannot let it fail, and you just continue to let it go out of control.
Yep. So I hope people understand that. I thought Sarah did an absolutely implacable job of just point by point by point explaining that. So guys, I really appreciate everybody being on today. There was a huge audience today, and that makes me really believe that you guys are as concerned about this as we are, in government overreach and government encroachment. And I know that, well, oh, Michael, how many people have we talked to that have moved to this state? My neighbor, for one, who moved to this state just to homeschool their kids because we have zero. Right now we have zero regulations for homeschoolers, and there are legitimately people moving here from Oregon, Washington, California. My neighbors from California moved here specifically to homeschool their kids.
Yeah.
So
because they think that they do have the most amount of rights compared to where they are, but then they get in here and they see, hey, this is going in the wrong direction. I've talked to multiple people that have said that exact same thing.
Yeah. Well, next week on Wednesday, we're going to have a wonderful show. And let everybody know about this. I think it's going to be a fabulous show. We're actually going to have a debate on our show between Chris Powell, who is the chair of the Libertarian Party, Wendy Montgomery Dial, and Amber Evans, who are our two regulars on election integrity. And they're going to be debating Chris. The girls, the ladies, say, no, we need to dump the voter rolls and completely start all over. And Chris Powell says, no, we don't. And I don't want that to happen. And they're going to debate it. So I think we're going to have a great show for you next Wednesday. So please make sure, put it on your calendar and tune in. Let's have as great an audience then next Wednesday as we had today. And once you guys get off, don't forget, share. And we can always use what, Michael?
Couple bucks here and there, Patreon, any of our other platforms, just go to our website. We make it pretty easy. $5, $10. Feel good, send us a couple $100. I mean, anything just massively helps. This is all volunteers. Everything we do is just for your education.
That's it. All right, guys, everybody have a great rest of the week. I am putting replays on Friday, and we'll have our interview with Linda Murphy on when we talk about separation of church and state. It was really a great interview. If you want to revisit that, that'll be on Friday morning. But otherwise, we will see you live next Wednesday. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you then.